Hello and a very warm welcome to our today orcharhino webinar. My name is Simon Lawrence and I'm a consulting at Artix. Well, today we will talk about what Artix do and maybe how we can help you. And in our demo tile, I will show you how to do some basic Linux tasks also on Windows. So, first of all, I think every one of you knows that you can do many things manually. But if you do things manually, you will always have the problem that you may get some errors, sometimes more, sometimes less. So, wouldn't it be much better to automate mostly all basic tasks so you can reproduce them and standardize your environment? If you say yes now, then ethics may help you. The second question I always ask a customer: how do you deploy your environment? So we talked about you can do it manually or automatically, but let's do a more example on this, on the deployment process. Well, maybe you have an environment of 4 or 5 different hypervisors. Maybe you have some hybrid clouds. You have a VMware cluster internally and some Proxmox servers or cluster, and also some VMs in the AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure. So if you do these things manually again, you say, okay, I get a ticket. The customer wants 10 new VMs for a new project, and so you can really go and set up 10 VMs per hand. But I promise you will probably get in most of the VMs some difference. So if then the customer say, okay, I need 5 VMs in VMware and 5 in the AWS, it will be get more difficult. But if you automate this process and maybe you then press one button and you get the 10 new VMs in roughly 10 minutes, let's say. Manually, you would need maybe 2 or 3 hours for it. So you won't even be that fast if you do something manually, even in a deployment process. Or also, if we talk about configuration management, well, I think all of you know sometimes you need to change some DNS servers in your whole environment. So if you have 10 servers now or 10 clients, it's not that hard. You can do it manually. It will take some time, but it's okay. But let's say you have now 10,000 or 50,000 servers or clients. Then if you do this manually, you will never finish this process because maybe you finish the first 5,000 servers in the next 3 months, and then there's another change, and you need to do this again manually. So you will always only do some config changes on each VM. But if you can use some configuration management tool like Ansible or Puppet or SaltStack or whatever you like, these are our 3 popular config management tools. So I used this one. You can again do this with a Ansible playbook, for example, and change the DNS server on 10,000 servers in 2 or 3 hours. It depends on how long Ansible will need to change it. So yeah, if you know Ansible, you know, okay, you do some playbooks or maybe only some Ansible fast tasks, and then Ansible runs, and you can multiple servers at a time. You can do each server after each other if one server depends on another. So, but you will save much time, much costs, because your Ansible don't cost a license, and the resource power it needs is, I think, much less expensive than your work. And if you automate these processes, then you can do some new projects. You can go on, build new infrastructure parts or improve some infrastructure parts. And I think we all know this would be sometimes really great if we have time for really improvements. Well, we talked about the deployment and the configuration management, but also a very, very important uh, yeah, scenario is the patch management. So today we want that all servers are all times very secure and up to date. So if you do this manually, you have some Ubuntu servers and some Red Hat servers, and there are also some CentOS servers and some Debian servers. You go to each of these hosts, and you maybe on Ubuntu you do an apt-get update. On Red Hat you do yum install or yum update. Well, each system needs other commands to do this patch management. And again, here, if you have 10 or 20 servers, it will be okay. Maybe even with 100 servers. But the more servers you have, also more time you need to do this task manually again, and it won't be good. I think you will say this too, because if you have done it once before, you know, okay, there's one each week a new update, a new patch on several clients, on several distributions of Linux or even on Windows. And yeah, you can't do this all manually, so you need to automate it to save time, to save costs, and to get the chance to always be safe and up to date. And if we talk about patches, maybe you produce some software and then you will test software. So you would really need a release management, because I don't know if you had some problems of this, but you develop an software or an application on your development environment. Let's say this environment is maybe on Azure or AWS, and you test it there, everything works very fine. Then the software or the application get to the next stage, your test environment. And in the test environment, you are on a VMware vSphere cluster now, and you have not the same patches on the VMs, not the same uh, basic OS packages installed on the VM, and then you get a problem. Or maybe not. Well, I don't know, but often it occurs that if you have a test environment, there always works fine. Then it goes to prod, and prod you have additional software, you have other patch stands, and then you get a problem with the software because it don't run anymore, and you couldn't test it before because you have the different stages, but each stage has other version of software on it. So it would be very cool if you say, okay, I tested in my dev is the first, the developer tested on his dev machine and it worked there. And the same software I want now on the test. So you freeze all packages in their currently version and push it to the next stage, the test stage. On the test stage, you do some more testing. Maybe you have some APIs or some other software which you can test the connection to this software. And if this works, you only need to push the freeze packages also to prod. And then in prod, you shouldn't have that much problems anymore with your applications because you have the same tested patches and the same tested version of packages on your prod environment. So now we talked about a lot of tools or features. We talked about the deployment process. We talked about configuration management. We talked about patch management and also release management. For all these kinds of jobs, you can use a different type of software. But if you use a different type of software, you need to also patch the software, you need to manage the software, you need to train yourself in the software. And the more different applications you have, the more difficult it is to learn all the applications. So, wouldn't it be cool to have one software or one tool which can combine these processes into one tool? So, and this is the Orcharhino. The Orcharhino helps you to automatic your deployment. So you can set up 100 servers in a couple of minutes. After you deploy the servers, you can configure them via Ansible or Puppet or SaltStack, whatever you like. If there is a change in your DNS server, you just set a variable maybe in your Ansible playbook, and a new DNS configuration goes out to the servers you want. And also the release and the patch management can be done by Orcharhino. We we patch and release nearly all Linux systems. Windows is a special case. You can deploy Windows with the Orcharhino. You also can configure Windows with Orcharhino and Ansible or Puppet or even SaltStack. And well, you could do a release management on Windows, but it's not that good. So what we can do with the Orcharhino and Windows Patch Management, I will show you in the demo and say a bit more about it. But like you see, we can help you by the whole lifecycle management process. And this is one tool. So you don't need to have 3 or 4 tools for each type of stage. No, you have one tool. And what do we also provide with the Orcharhino as ATICs? Well, we have our consultants like me and my colleagues. We offer trainings, so you get trained how to use the Orcharhino, how to set up it, and also maybe how to improve your processes with the Orcharhino. We have a support up colleagues. If you have any problems, yeah, you can open a ticket and we'll get help very, very fast. And also, like each software company, we have an engineering team. They always focus on improving the Orcharhino. We, yeah, we do all the things here, so you can deploy and manage, like I told you, Debian, SUSE, Oracle, Red Hat, and we can use hypervisors as Proxmox, VMware, KVM, cloud platforms, Azure. You can use Puppet, SaltStack, or Ansible as configuration management. So this was a very short introduction in what we as attics do and where we may help you. And now let's go to our demo part. Here you also find our very, very good documentation to the orcharhino. And if you like it, you can also get some information or even register yourself for a short orcharhino demo with one of our consultants, where we can especially talk about your use cases and your scenario in the company. So, but now let me switch over to our demo system and show you there what our orcharhino is. So here we are. I hope you can see all the screen. We are here in the main host overview page. Here I can then click create host. I type in a name. So let's call it 19 demo 3 because we're talking today about Windows. Then I choose a host group. I will talk a little bit more about this in a short time. And this is all. So we get loaded where it should be deployed on, how our new VM should look like. We have here some CPU, some RAM, and everything else. So I just need to push submit here. And then the orcharhino will set up my new Windows VM. We can then open a VMware console. Yeah. I hope it's opening. Yeah, it is. So, and as you see, then it starts to boot and get its files from the orcharhino. Well, as you all know, Windows needs some time to deploy. So I deployed before the demo some other hosts to show you some use cases. So let's see what we have here. Okay, great. We have some Win19 host here. You see it is installed. We have no configuration changes. And what we can do now is we can schedule a remote job. So we can say him, okay, do this or that. So I choose Ansible Playbook. And then I want to get some information about my host. Is it up to date or do I need some patches? So you can also do this to more than one host or even to one specific host. So I let those all blank here and press submit. So what is orcharhino now doing? Orcharhino is now starting our Ansible playbook. And our Ansible playbook will get us the information we need about this host. So it will take a bit of time, but it should be done in a few seconds. Okay, so while this is okay, it starts. It should be, but let's go to host groups. I told you I just choose a host group, and what is a host group? In a host group, you can define many things, nearly everything that a host should look like. So it's like a template. I could say like a VMware template, and there we can define some things like the content view. It's not important for us in Windows because, like I told you, we can't do a real patch management in Windows like we can do it in Linux. But in Linux, you would say, okay, you get a content view, a content source. Where does the content come from? If you use Puppet, you can choose your Puppet environment. You can tell, okay, where should the host be deployed on? Here we deploy on our internal VMware. Which resources should my new VM have? So one compute profile and some things like the Puppet proxy. If you have a multi network environment, it would be very helpful to use Puppet proxies. So not everything need to ask the orcharhino master or the Puppet master. Um, what is my config? But can also ask his proxy. Then I can also say, okay, I want some Ansible roles. Yeah. So here we use some message of the day Ansible role. I will show you this, how it look like. You can also define some Puppet classes or salt states. You can predefine some network configurations. So which domain should the new VM have, in which subnet it should rely on. And also the operating system. So which architecture do we have? Which operating system do we want? If you want Windows Server 2016, you can also choose this one. If you have created it in the orcharhino, you can choose which yeah, I call it CD, which medium the new VM should use to install. How should our partition table look like? If you have there's some special cases where you need 2 or 3 disks, so you can use or you must use another partition table than if you have only one disk. We can tell him, okay, what is the password? Here's the root password. It's also the administrator password for Windows. And we can also tell him which PXE loader it should use. What we also can do, we can tell him, okay, some parameters we need. We need it for the installation, and we can set here, okay, some Ansible credentials. We can say, okay, how should our Ansible be configured so we can use it afterward. So we can tell him, okay, I don't want to do updates, because if we say, okay, update, like it's the default, it will take a bit longer than if we don't do some updates. We can tell him which NTP server it should use. You can tell him if it should enable ICMP reply, what is default disabled on Windows. We can enable remote desktop. We can set a time zone, a license key, and if you have Puppet, you can tell him, okay, where is my Puppet agent MSI? So it will be installed during the installation. And you could also set some other parameters. If you change the script or edit the script to use some more parameters. You can, for example, tell the new Windows VM it should join a domain if during the installation. So we could also set here parameters for the domain join. Well, because we have no Active Directory domain here in our test infrastructure, I can't show you this now, but in our Ocarina documentation, you will find all variables or parameters you can set. And yeah, we nearly try to always improve also the Windows deployment. So if you need some help, if you have some special use cases or something what isn't implemented yet, you can always ask us. And yes, this is all for host groups. Let's see if our template is ready now. Okay, so we found 4 updates. Yeah, we found one. Yeah, security or 2 security updates, and some tool updates, I would say. And now if you say, okay, I want a security update on all of my Windows machines, we know, okay, it's this number. So we can copy this, say back to job. If you have multiple servers selected before, it will also have multiple targets now. Then we can say, okay, now rerun. It will ask us again for some parameters. Now we say, okay, we want a reboot. Yeah, because if we do security updates, often we need a reboot, or we say, no, we don't want a reboot. Here you see the default is no reboot. Then the state, so we can control if it should only search for updates like we did before. It should install updates, or it should download updates and we will install them later. Now we want to install. And the whitelist means you can place here some KB numbers, which it only should install. So we said, okay, we only want a security patch. So I whitelist only this KB number. Then we again press submit. And again, Ansible is starting. Get some facts again from the VM. So we can have a look about our facts. You can also see in the orcharhino host page. So let's see where our host is. Okay, here's our host. And here we have some facts. And there you see if it's an Ansible fact or a Puppet fact. So we can see it's a Windows, it's x64 architecture. And yeah, we have a lot of facts in here. We can see what IP addresses is assigned to this host, which kernel release we have, which Windows release ID we have, which Windows version we have, and many, many other things. And now let's have a look if our deployment is ready. No, it's not. It's still in the deployment. It can take up to 5 or 10 minutes because it needs to do some configurations. And yeah, we install Puppet, we configure Ansible, we create a specific Ansible user, we set some firewall rules, and so it will take a bit of time. If you want to do some release management, you can do with this template. So not like Linux, you have some packages in the orcharhino. You can do this also in some file repos, but it's not recommended. So, but if you have a Visual server and say, okay, now this group of hosts get this updates available, and then at midnight you want to deploy them, but you don't want to work at midnight, I think. So you can use some kind of job template of the orcharhino. And here we see it installed our security update now. We can check this. So we go back and say rerun. Reboot we don't need. We want to be searched and not no whitelisted. So we want to see all updates from the categories critical updates, security updates, and update rollups. So you can also choose some more categories, but it's really nice documented here or even in the Ansible documentation. So now we press submit and wait for the output here. So our host is still deploying. So I would say, do you have some questions now? If you have some questions, please ask, and I will try my best to answer them all. Okay, so there is no question yet, but oh, I wanted to show you the message of the day, right? It's not a question, it's a hint. Yeah, thank you. So let's have a look. Okay, it's started here. So, and this is our message of the day. We implemented here for Windows. So we get the whole FQDN with the IP. We get the processor, we get the kernel, and we even get the memory size. And then we can log in to this machine. But let's have a look. Here, yes, we see we only have 3 updates available now because, yeah, right, we installed the security patch. So you see, you can automate also Windows patching with the orcharhino. You can deploy some Windows server. You can configure Windows server. So if you have some PowerShell scripts, or you can do the domain join and many other things. So it's very, very cool. We get here an last execution failed because it tried to, I think it tried to do the report before Ansible was available. Oh, no, it's missing a fact. So, but we can log in now to the new machine. No, it's rebooting. Okay, then we can do the login and also rerun the Ansible role. So this is one of our other test hosts where we install the update. And like you see, it's a installed Windows Server 2019. And you could also configure the server as domain controller with Ansible, or you can install MS SQL via Ansible on the server. You can set up an web server with Ansible on the Windows machine. So you see, you can also deploy like Windows like Linux servers with the orcharhino. So let's have a look. This machine is also ready. Okay. Let's see if we can log in. Yes, we can. So let's have a look. If we run Ansible roles, it's the same like with the job template. Here you see again, we are completely logged in also to this Windows machine. The server manager is starting. So let's wait a bit. Again, if you have some questions, please don't hesitate to ask them so we can answer them in this demo. Don't worry, this is our, yeah, I would say normal error on our Windows systems, but it do nothing. So it's just the error message. Now it's asking for some features which are enabled on our new Windows machine. Okay, here we see all our features which are enabled on our new machine. Looks perfect. And I think this is not a Windows role, but a Linux role. So it don't work because it can't find an Ansible distribution release fact. So, but you see, it also works. Ansible roles here also. It's the same for Linux. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, I would say thank you very much for your time. I hope I could give you some ideas of what the Ocarina can also do with Windows, the same as Linux, and give you a short overview of what we as Atix do. And maybe we will see or hear you again. So have a nice evening and bye bye.